associate member has not yet logged in, but it's 7:01, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's the Tuesday, March 17th, 2026 meeting of the West Newbury Planning Board. Since we're having a remote meeting that includes 3 public hearings, I'd like the planning board members to just identify themselves briefly. There are 5 of us, and I'll go first. Ann Bardeen, Planning Board Chair.
Ray Cook, Planning Board Member.
Deb Hamilton, Planning Board Member.
Brian Murphy, Planning Board Member.
Rob Phillips, Vice Chair.
Thank you. And we are joined this evening by Sam Jocelyn, who's the town's building commissioner. He has much expertise in these bylaws, so we may be calling upon him to answer some questions, if any. I see our associate members just logging on, so we'll give him a minute. And the meeting this evening, the Zoom is being run by the land administrator, whose name is Jennifer Geary. So if any of you hear me talking about Jen, there she is on the screen. I may have questions for her if we need to get something up on the screen, and that's who Jen is. All right. Let me just talk a little bit about what is going to happen tonight, because there are procedural things that are required, and they may seem arcane and strange, but we're going to do them because that's what we need to do. There are 3 public hearings on the agenda. The planning board is charged with conducting public hearings when they regard zoning bylaws, which 2 of these do. And since these are 3 separate matters, I'm going to read legal notices separately and open a separate hearing for each one of them. I think that's the cleanest way to contain the discussion. We'll only be talking about one topic at a time. The items number 1A and B are both amendments to the zoning bylaws. And as I said, the planning board conducts these hearings, but the decision on whether or not to adopt a new bylaw or change to a bylaw is made by the town at town meeting. So there may well be votes of the planning board tonight, but what those votes are votes to make a recommendation to the town meeting. In other words, expressing the board's opinion about whether or not we think this is something that the town should consider adopting. No decision will be made tonight about these laws, but those decisions will happen at town meeting, just so you understand. And the third hearing, 1C, is to amend the planning board's own subdivision rules and regulations. There again, we are required to have a public hearing to explain what that's all about. But in that case, the planning board does vote its own rules and regs. That does not go to town meeting. So we will be taking a vote on that tonight as a board. All right, let's see. I think if everyone's clear on the ground rules. Oh, let me just say this too before we start. There's a sort of a process that we'll go through. Once I read the legal notice and open the hearing, then we'll have a brief explanation of the topic. It may be by a planning board member, it may be by Mr. Jocelyn, it may be by someone else, just to kind of let everybody know what the key points are. Planning board members can then make comments or ask questions. And after that, I'll open it up to members of the public who will be welcome to make comments or ask questions. And once we've received all the input and it sounds like we've exhausted all the possible discussion that we can have, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. What that does is means that we won't receive any new information. And then the planning board will deliberate and take a vote on its recommendation. So that will happen a couple of times and you'll see how it works. The first hearing is on the marijuana overlay district. The West Newbury Planning Board will hold a virtual public hearing on Tuesday, March 17th, 2026 at 7 p.m. to consider and report on the following proposed amendments to the Town of West Newbury zoning bylaw and map. Number 1, amend section 3.1, establishment of districts, and create a new section 8.4 called Marijuana Overlay District, MOD, which will allow medical and adult use marijuana establishments in accordance with Chapter 55 of the Acts of 2017 and Act to ensure safe access to marijuana. Number 2, add a district known as the Marijuana Overlay District to the zoning map as an overlay over the business zone on assessors parcels numbered R11-11, U1-30-35, U1-21-27 partial, U1-38 partial -42, U1-52-54 partial, an area of approximately 12 acres. The current zoning bylaw, along with text of the proposed amendment, are on file with the town clerk. To view the proposed changes, visit the website given in the notice, or contact landadmin@westnewbury.org, and interested persons may participate in the public hearing by using the link again found in the notice. Okay, so as background, let me just say the town voted in 2016 to allow marijuana establishments to be established, to exist in West Newbury. But we never went any farther than that as far as regulating where or how or when. The state requires that we have a zoning bylaw that will tell exactly where this is allowed. And this gives us some control over locating these kinds of establishments. We've already agreed as a town that we can have them. And so the discussion now is about where they could be located. The language in this proposed bylaw is based on a couple of things. One is a state model bylaw, and the other is through looking at what similar communities or communities with well-functioning bylaws have adopted in their language. Sam, do you want to add anything to that or further explain?
The only thing I'd add, well said, you know, said everything I'd say. The only thing I want to make clear is with lacking a bylaw, we have much less control over how these operations could come into town. So if someone currently came into town looking to do marijuana retail, lacking a bylaw as the zoning enforcement officer, I just have to treat it as retail. And it would just be subject to the same as any other retail as far as process goes. And that may or may not involve site plan review. Depending if you were just going from a retail shop to a retail shop, it might just be a, move on in and get your business license and start operating once you're approved through the Cannabis Commission. What this bylaw does is specifically defines where it's allowed, and in addition to any process through site plan review or other process that it might trigger, it allows us to look at the things that are specific concerns to marijuana establishments and regulate those through this bylaw.
Great, thank you. Good clarification. So we have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages. And I'm wondering if planning board members have any comments or questions about the language of the bylaw? We've been looking at this for a while now.
Just as a reminder to anyone who might be interested, it seems to me that the overlay district is strictly over a small section of downtown in currently commercially zoned locations. Is that correct?
Yes, the overlay district is follows the same boundaries as the business district, and then there are some exclusions. There are some setbacks there. Let's see. Yeah, so if you look at the bylaw 8.4.4 general requirements, I think it might be the 3rd page, Jen, if you want to scroll down there. It's after the definitions. Maybe it's the 4th page. No, this is it. Letter I. No marijuana establishment shall be permitted within 250 feet of any pre-existing public or private school, providing education in kindergarten through grade 12, measured in a straight line from the nearest lot line of the school to the nearest lot line of the proposed establishment. For purposes of this bylaw, the term school does include preschool or licensed childcare facilities. So that would cover, in our business district, we don't have any K through 12 schools, but we do have preschools and childcare facilities.
Thank you.
Okay. Other board members, any specific
Yeah,
comments?
and Sam has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, couldn't see it. There it is. Go ahead, Sam.
After we discussed this a little bit yesterday, I was thinking about the map that was proposed, and it's a good visual. The problem is I don't think we can adopt the map, just the language, because the problem is if those daycares move or go up, leave the churches, or new ones come in, that map would be changing.
Hmm.
And I don't think we should have a map that morphs based on businesses moving in or out, where we can simply measure 250 feet from whichever property. But I think it is a good.
We had similar discussions, Sam, at a meeting that you weren't at. And it was decided that, pretty much what you said, that the information of what would be the excluded area would always be available, but they would be available probably through your office, through the land administration or through your office, so that any current applicant could come in and see whether or not there were still areas excluded. So
Perfect. But
I think our prior conversations are pretty much in agreement with yours.
okay,
Right.
cool.
So I think that covers the basics unless people have specific questions about any definitions. Yes, Brian, sorry.
Yeah, I do think I had noted that a couple of folks were wondering about under mass law in the Cannabis Control Act, it speaks to a 500-foot exclusion from the said schools, preschools, etc.
Mhm.
And I think we should explain perhaps why we went to 250 feet.
Would you like to do that? Or
Well-
maybe Sam will. I think the relatively short answer to that is that our district is so small that 500 feet would exclude almost all of it, and that would be felt by the Attorney General's office, which
Right.
has to approve our bylaw, to be willful evasion of the spirit of the
Right.
law. Sam,
Right.
does that cover it pretty well?
Yep, perfect. Yeah. So the towns have the default is a 500 foot at the state level, but towns can choose to either opt out of it or change the measurement. And again, like you had said, if we adopted that 500, that pretty much takes away the entire business zone, leaving, and we've discussed we don't want it in the residential zone, so it would leave nowhere left in town. So
Okay, thank you.
And I'd just like to add, Ann,
Yes, go ahead, Ray.
for people who are tuning in, we considered a wide variety of options here. And this is the result of a lot of discussion. And so this is what we, after consulting with Sam and Sam consulting with other places and checking the mass laws and everything, after trying to think outside the box, think of the whole big picture, this is what we came up with, which we felt complied with the state, so we wouldn't get in trouble with the Attorney General, and fit best for the town of West Newbury. So
Very good.
I don't want people to think that this is something we threw together quickly.
No, that's right. It's been discussed in numerous of our meetings, which are, of course, always open to the public, and are generally virtual. So, but now here we are seeking input from members of the public. So I'm going to try to do that. It can be a little tricky to manage with this number of participants. Let's see.
I've got a Catherine Marone.
Catherine. All right. And so when I recognize you, please, would you give your name and your address for the record?
Hi,
Hi.
Catherine. I haven't spoken much today, sorry.
That's okay.
Catherine Marone, 251 River Road.
Thank you.
Thank you for holding this informational meeting, first off. I really don't have a strong opinion either way, but just looking for a little clarification. So my understanding, based on what you're saying tonight, is that because the town voted in 2016 to allow a cannabis location we are required by law to develop an overlay district. Is that a correct understanding?
Basically, yes, we're required to, well, we're required to have a bylaw, yes, that controls, that is more specific about where it's allowed. And as Sam Jocelyn said, that gives us the most control, is if we decide upon an area rather than just letting a retail location move into, a retail location in town closes, somebody else could just move in and we'd have no control. Here, there's quite a bit of control over hours, odors, parking, security, all kinds of stuff like that we'd like to maintain control over.
So this is actually quite important, because if this bylaw was brought before the town and they voted no, then we have to go back to square one and try to get another bylaw passed.
Yes, or in the absence of one, the day after town meeting, for example, someone could come in and, have an application to go into an existing location that we wouldn't have any control over.
Which would
Madam
not
Chairman,
be
may I
good
add
for
to
us.
that?
Yes, excuse me, Brian, you have something to add?
Yes, just as
Please.
to furtherance from Catherine Marone's comments. Um, I think we all can see that it's, while it's highly unlikely that someone would choose West Newbury,
Right. Right.
in terms of the traffic flow and visibility. When you look at where these retail establishments are located, on Route 110 in Salisbury and Amesbury, on Route 1 in Rowley, on Route 1 in Salisbury again, they tend to be much higher traffic volumes, much more visibility, signage, and whatnot. And again, no one, to my knowledge, has even inquired about doing this. And so this is something that, yes, we think it will help codify, and improve the likelihood that no one will even think of opening a place. But I think the reality with the environment today, retail establishments are not doing well, and some have in fact closed. So I don't want you to think that this is in response to something that we think is coming down the road. It is not.
So as a follow-up question, as a real estate broker, I have helped a few clients locate cannabis locations.
Oh,
So I'm fairly familiar with the process and the Massachusetts law. Is there anything stopping, let's say someone does want to come to West Newbury. Is there anything stopping someone from buying a single family residence within this zone and turning it into a retail location?
If I may, yeah?
Yes, go ahead, and then I'll turn to Sam if needed.
If this bylaw passes as we propose it, or with minor modifications, yes, this bylaw makes it absolutely clear that any cannabis facility would have to take place in the cannabis district, which is part of our business district. So if we pass this bylaw, it would prevent somebody from, say, down Maple Street someplace, or Middle Street, from just buying a private residence and establishing a cannabis business there.
So there is in fact, to Catherine's question, a residence within the business district, which I think might be more
Okay.
to the point. And to answer that is, not only does it have to be within the commercial district and only within the commercial district, but it also cannot be within 250 feet of childcare or preschool. So if you have a specific location in mind, get out a tape measure and you can probably see whether it falls within that. I don't think, to my knowledge, we didn't look at it specifically to your question, but I don't think there is a residence in town that exists in the commercial space that can, that's outside of the 250. Beyond that, though, the question, as someone said, really not likely that anybody would have a worthwhile endeavor in West Newbury. You can see that we don't really have a commercial district, and it's kind of like almost like hobby shops that come in and out, not real commercial ventures. I don't think it's likely, but the fear is that if we don't put something in place that the AG approves, where other retail exists in town, and it does, you could end up with something popping up where you don't expect it to pop up. So this is more about making sure that if anything were to ever happen, it would happen under pretty stringent rules and regulations. And on top of it, if I were to bet, I would bet that nothing will ever happen in our town.
Okay, Ann, I gotta jump in. Rob, I gotta correct you a little bit. There are lots that are currently in residential use that are within the business district and would be within the proposed
Sure.
cannabis.
So how many? One or two?
A few,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I stand corrected, but the point is that we're getting it into a fairly narrow range of where it can exist, protecting us from it existing elsewhere. And as Ray just pointed out, yeah, there's a couple of houses that potentially could be become a cannabis dispensary. Sam might speak to whether any of those things would not pass muster with some of the other requirements we have in the
The couple I
article.
believe there's 2 single families that are of the 6 properties that end up being, in the allowed area. Could you convert them to a retail cannabis shop? Sure, just as much as you can convert them to a candy shop. You'd be subject to the same building codes, the same parking requirements, but with this bylaw, you'd also be subject to everything that's in this bylaw as well. So is it likely someone's going to take a house and turn it retail? It's probably not all that cost effective for any type of retail.
Right. Right.
So could it? Sure. Someone could come in and knock down the house and build something just as if they could anywhere else in the business district. But again, is it worth buying essentially $1 million or close to $1 million house to tear down and rebuild? Probably not. But I can never say never, but I think it's very unlikely.
Somebody would have to be really dedicated.
Okay, I'm going to try to involve a few more people. I see Phyllis Unger has her hand raised. Phyllis, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I live at 12 Maple Street. I live directly across the street from what was the music studio. So I have great concerns about the situation. I'm in a direct abutter right on the business district. And that 250-foot setback is a real problem for us. I just don't think it's acceptable to have it. And the situation is that they have to have, according to state law, a great deal of security on their property, on that type of property. And one of them is extremely, extremely bright lights that must be illuminated all night long.
Mhm.
And that would be an infringement on the enjoyment of my property.
Okay.
So I don't understand if this is turned down by the town. I assume you have to find somewhere else to put it. And so therefore, I don't understand why we're putting it, you're suggesting that it be put here when the town owns so much land elsewhere, like off of 95.
Okay.
And I think it's really a bad representation for children in this town. I live here, I see kids riding by on their bikes, school, all that sort of thing, kids hanging out at the food mart. They're not bothering anybody, but I think having something like this in town is not good for the children.
So,
Let me
I've
just-
been a teacher, excuse me.
Yep.
I've been a teacher for 46 years. I know a ton about kids, and I just don't think that this is proper place. Besides the fact for me, for my home, I don't think this is a proper place to have for children hanging around. And I just don't understand why this can't be out near 95 and you sell or rent, lease the land to whoever wants to buy it.
Okay, at this point, let me see if I can clarify something. At this point, in the absence of a local bylaw, someone already has the ability to come into town
Right,
and
right.
establish a marijuana store. And they could, at this point, because it would be considered a retail establishment, they could do it anywhere in the downtown that was available for sale or rent. So what this does, in fact, is gives us some control about distances away from daycares and child care facilities and schools. And it also gives us a lot more control over hours of operation and parking and security and odors and all that kind of stuff. Ray, you have something to add?
Yes, I just checked, and Miss Unger's parcel is awkwardly partly in the business district and partly outside of the business district. And I understand her concerns, and I'm sympathetic to them. But that would be true all across town, that people would be concerned about this. The other thing is, I think Ms. Unger is suggesting the little bit of West Newbury that's on the other side of I-95. And I just want to assure her that we looked at that parcel and felt that it would be, what was the legal phrase you used earlier?
Willful evasion.
Willful evasion, because that parcel couldn't be used in a real sense to have a cannabis facility. So as we stand right now, the entire town is vulnerable. If we're trying to be proactive here by suggesting a bylaw, and what somebody would be doing would be a business, and therefore we felt it would be appropriate for businesses to be constrained to the business district.
And so what is somebody gonna do about these bright lights? Because they'd be infringing on the enjoyment of my property, which I have a right to.
Sam, can you speak to the?
What is the town gonna do about that?
I'm going to ask the zoning enforcement officer if he knows anything about the requirements for lighting.
Sure. As part of our site plan review, we do have lighting requirements. A lot of that is down lighting so that it is non-glaring onto other properties. It's directional. Would there be light overflow? Sure, as there would be with any business that might go in there and have parking lot lights.
But they still don't have the right to shine that onto my house. Years ago, when that was a bank, someone wanted to buy it to use it as a drive-through kind of situation. Well, a bunch of us went to the planning board. It wasn't you people at the time. And it got knocked down because one of the reasons is that that drive-through coming through would be pointing right at my bedroom and my living room. And so the planning board dismissed that because that was an infringement on me and my other two neighbors. So you're saying that my property, part of it's in the business district?
Correct.
Okay, so then I would have the right to sell this to a marijuana person, business. Is that correct?
The line that defines the business district cuts across your parcel. And so I don't know how that works. Sam would probably know what happens when a parcel is partly in and partly without, or my other colleagues here on the planning board. But before we jump to that, Ms. Unger, do you remember when this took place, your concern about the bank and the lighting? Because a number of us have been on the planning board for decades.
It was, oh God, how many years ago was that? That was a long time ago. I mean, the Bank of New England was empty like for about 10 years. It was before Mr. Cook went in there. Because when Mr. Cook was there, he had his, I forget, financial investment building there. He's the one that turned it over.
Gotcha.
God, it had to be I've been here 36 years.
Okay. Well, I just want you to know that we were on the planning board when the current bank building was developed. And at that time, and indeed, with the high school and with all kinds of development in town, we're very concerned about lights and the impact not on the abutters and actually on the town as a whole. So we'd always be concerned. I think Sam is being appropriate when he says there's no guarantees here about anything.
Well, I don't certainly agree with the 250-foot setback. That's totally unfair. I'm sure if any of you lived here, you would feel the same way.
Would you clarify what's unfair about it? Because it makes the
It's
zone less useful to a retailer. In other words,
good.
the 250 is intended to cut down the size of the business district that could be used. So when you say it's unfair, do you want 500? Do you want 0? I'm not sure I'm following your
Yeah,
argument.
yeah, a 500-foot setback. I want them, that's what the state recommends. So why wouldn't you go with what everybody else, you're saying here, the state wants this, the state wants that, but the state
Well,
recommends 500. So why wouldn't you keep it at
Well, it
500?
says you can go to 500, doesn't tell you to
Yeah.
have 500.
Well, then why wouldn't you want to go to 500?
So I gotta, and Sam will correct me if I'm wrong here, but if we don't do this and everything defaults to the state regulations and the 500 feet, the way I read the state law is the current daycare at the churches would not count. And so there would actually be no setback and the entire business district would be available to a potential cannabis business operation.
Or as previously discussed in this meeting, if you went to 500, the Attorney General won't accept our language because it basically creates no zone at all.
So, yeah, well, there's two things. One is if it's all the state and the state language, then the churches don't count and there's a 500-foot setback, but it's not from because it's not a K through 12 school, there is none. If we use our language as proposed and then change the 250 to 500, then the daycare at the church does count, but then there is nothing left of our business district at all. I've done some rough scaling here. And I don't believe there would be any part of the business district that could take a cannabis facility, which then would be the willful evasion thing and get us in trouble with the state.
Well, what I need to know is, since my lot is supposedly part business and part residential, I need to know if I can turn it into a business district, and I would sell it to someone who wants to buy it for that purpose.
So Sam,
Well,
can you clarify, Sam, please, when a lot falls into more than one district, is it considered to be in the district which has the greater portion of the land falling within it?
So in this case, I don't think it matters because I believe the Unger's property is within that 250 foot. So
No, but I mean
don't-
in general,
I've checked, it's not.
Oh, it's not. Okay. I thought it was closer.
Yeah.
So typically you would, where your frontage is what you're allowed. So if say the business district was at the rear of the property and you had to go through the residential, typically you couldn't go through residential to get through business. But the front of the property could be used as a business proper, and then with potential special permits, extend the business into the, or maybe not even special permits, maybe variants, extend into the residential portion.
Ms. Unger,
There's no existing business back there now.
by what Sam just said, you would have to, you'd need to hire an engineer and check surveying and run
My
things. past
husband's
Sam.
an engineer. He does
Good.
all this
Well,
for a living.
Yeah, and there's a
yeah,
real
I
estate
would-
agent that's also on this, so maybe, maybe you should talk to a real estate agent about your plans.
But what I see is that your lot, by what Sam just said, your lot could have a business on it,
Mhm.
regardless of the type. But that's just me looking at stuff, and I'm not a lawyer, and
Mhm,
you know, I'm a registered professional engineer, but not in the state of Massachusetts.
mhm,
So, and all this legal stuff, of course, you'd want to have your
mhm.
I's dotted and your T's crossed, but it looks to me like your lot is in the business district.
Isn't that interesting?
Now, Catherine Marone has raised her hand again. Catherine, would you like to make a comment?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm aware of a state regulation 935 CMR 500.1103 that states that it is prohibited to cite a marijuana establishment within 500 feet of a pre-existing school, daycare, or similar youth-focused facility. So that state regulation states that it goes beyond K through 12 and does include in Massachusetts state regulations pre-existing daycare.
Yeah,
Um,
we found two Massachusetts writings on this, and they conflict.
Which is,
right. So,
so
so
we
if
spelled it
anything,
out.
yeah,
sorry.
if anything, I think we should then err on the side of maybe the more stringent one.
Which is what we did.
Good.
So
Okay. So
so
I
what
just
we-
wanted to make
so-
sure that people realize that state regulations do include daycare. I understand the reason for reducing the buffer to 250. That makes total sense based on what you've said tonight. My question is, has anyone dialogued with the Congregational Church about this so that they understand your thought process on this? Because they're smack dab in the middle of the district.
Well, at this point, as we've said, it's a business district that allows retail. Tomorrow, a marijuana related establishment could walk into Sam's office and say, I'm going to move into such and such a building as a retail use. This is intended not to change anything about the fact that it could happen now. It's in fact intended to put some guardrails on the process.
I totally understand and agree with you, Anne.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if it's worthwhile educating the church on this so that they don't get blindsided by an overlay district and then maybe have questions that could have very simply been answered ahead of time. That's all I'm saying.
Mhm. Okay, I see another person who hasn't yet spoken, so I'm going to recognize Lisa Forbush-Umholtz.
Hi, yeah, sorry. I'm on my phone, so I can't do my camera, but Lisa Forbes Holtz, 150 Middle Street. Thanks for having this. It's cleared up a lot of questions for me, and I think I agree with what you're proposing. Just a clarification for you, I'm just trying to understand. I remember the vote on the question, I don't question 3 or whatever it was, are we talking, because you spoke about the town voting on this, are we talking about the same law that was voted on, that this language regarding putting in an overlay district for each town or city, that was included in part of that question that we voted on back in 2016?
I think at that time that was a vote, that was a ballot vote, as I recall, whether or
Yeah.
not to allow such establishments in your town, quote unquote, in your town or city. And that was kind of
Okay.
the gating event. In this town voted in the majority, yes, we'll allow them. But I think it was silent on what would
Right,
happen
right.
downstream.
And then as good practice for any number of activities, for instance, adult stores and whatnot, the best practice is always then to describe what you will allow so that you can better control the activities that occur. So if you remain silent, as Ann has said, stuff could actually happen, but you would have much less control over where and how.
Okay, so was there a point that as a town we voted on the language that said each town will need to you know, have an overlay district that would allow marijuana distribution centers? Like, was that a specific vote that we took, or
No,
was
no,
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 no.
having voted to allow it, then, the state has the Cannabis Control Commission and so forth. Once this became an allowed use in the state, and then you could
Mhm.
opt in as a town, as we did, then the state said, okay, well, now you need to figure out what you're gonna do about it.
Right, right. And
Okay,
that's what
but
we're
that was
doing
the
right
state.
now.
And that's what we're doing now. Yep.
Okay, so the state then said, okay, each town now needs to figure out where they would put this, since the whole state voted that they would allow it.
No, each town, I think, had the opportunity to vote on whether or
Right,
not
right.
to
We,
allow
we
it.
unfortunately voted yes. That puts us in the position of now it becomes an activity that can occur. What we're doing now is
Okay.
we're trying to
So
put in place
it was
stuff that
separate
will
from
be more proscribed behavior and locations than would otherwise exist.
okay. So it was separate from the ballot vote then.
Yes,
Yes.
it's a completely separate thing.
Okay. All right. What year was that? Because I don't remember it at
I
all.
think Sam said it was 2016. Is that right, Sam? You and I talked the other
Okay.
day. Yeah.
I'm fairly certain
It
it
was
was 2016, yeah.
16. But
So we're
about,
about
after
10
the
years
ballot.
late on
yeah,
coming up
on,
with a bylaw.
on regulating what we said would be okay. All right.
Okay. And one more quick question. And would this if the town were to vote yes on this bylaw, would it in the future preclude any changes in our business district overlay? Or could we minimize it or make it larger in the future? Like, especially I'm thinking minimize it. Like, will this, because now we have this overlay that we voted on, does it preclude that?
Preclude what? Changing the size of the underlying business district?
The business
I'm not sure.
district, yes.
So
don't know.
additional action would have to be taken to
Yeah.
do anything different than what's being presented right now. So for instance, if this were to pass at town meeting, you would then, in order to change this, have to have something else that goes to town meeting.
Mhm.
As we've mentioned earlier, though, you can't proscribe something that effectively makes it so that there is really, in actuality, no district. That's the one thing that if you go too far, if you make it 500, you may in fact not have a district that will be acceptable to the Attorney General's office.
Right.
And if I could,
Yes, Ray, go ahead. I couldn't see you, but yeah.
yeah, I posted the language from the Cannabis Control Commission, which does not include daycares. And so what we're proposing is language that explicitly does. I put that in the chat and I've got a link there if anybody wants it. And just to back up what Rob was saying, again, if we don't pass any bylaw, it defaults to state regulations, and that would make the entire town more vulnerable to having a cannabis facility where we don't expect it throughout the town. If we pass it, we clear up this ambiguity about how to measure the buffer, and we have a more restrictive buffer, and that's totally legal by Massachusetts law as it exists. So we're trying to be proactive here, and that's the point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else who hasn't had a chance to speak? I may not see you raising your hand. I don't know if Jen is
I
monitoring.
see Wendy unmuted.
Okay. Wendy, did you want to say something?
Just wanted to make residents as well as the planning board aware that there is another potential way to manage this. We just found out today, actually, from our council that an option is to have both a town meeting vote and a ballot vote to just ban the 3 types of cannabis businesses. So we're going to be discussing that at the select board meeting on Thursday night. I'd like to just get planning board's input on whether you think that's a solution or whether you
So
think just.
you're saying basically to reverse the
Rescind?
town's approval, and we would be saying no to cannabis in town?
Yeah, we
Right.
just learned today from.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So oddly enough, that was something I was going to raise myself as a question, not as something that's known, because quite honestly, in all of this discussion, the one thing, the elephant in the room is, why in God's name did we ever approve cannabis in the town? It's not needed. It causes this type of concern. And I got to tell you, our retail district is not ever going to be an economic force, and we should probably take the lead that Wendy just said and reconsider having marijuana sales in town.
I
Well,
guess, Ray, do you have, go ahead.
yeah, I just want to say that, I mean, this is possible and it's been a while, so I'm open to it. I'm cautious because, you know, this was discussed at town meeting. And it's definitely, in my view, it's will of the town. And, you know, I disagree with Rob that it's our place to have an opinion on whether or not it's appropriate for the town tonight. That's a broader issue. And, you know, if it's the wisdom of town leadership to bring it back before the town and have the whole town discuss it, then that's fine. I remember in town meeting, there was quite a discussion on this, and in the end, it was the will of the residents of the town to allow it. And that may have changed. A lot of things have changed in a decade, and that's fine. But it is something that
So
we wanna
Wendy's
be
question, as I
cautious.
took it, was whether we would be open to that sort of reconsideration that they're trying to jumpstart. And what I'm trying to say is I'm all in favor of the question that Wendy has raised. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well,
Understood.
Madam
I
Chair?
would, yes, go ahead, Brian.
Um, I could be wrong. I thought it was a ballot vote, not a town
It
meeting
was a
vote.
ballot. It was a ballot.
Yeah, so this would have to be both, which the deadline for a ballot question is this Friday. So, I mean, this is kind of, you know, really fast track, but
I frankly have not read anything that suggests towns are opting out, but I mean, to me, it's a will of the town. I have no
Right.
stake in the ground here. I've said, I don't think West Newbury is a place for a shop. I don't think one would ever get built here. But I have no, you know, I'm not for or against doing a ballot.
I agree.
That's your job, Wendy.
Yeah,
Will-
so
will
Wendy,
of the
can I ask a question though? If anyone doesn't know, Wendy Reed is the chair of the select board. How does it work when a thing is both town meeting and ballot? Can you explain? What is that?
my assumption is they would both have to pass, but I believe Angus is on. He's been discussing this directly with the attorney, so he might be able to answer that.
I mean, I guess my caveat would be that I think that this bylaw as presented has great utility to the town. I might even say it's essential to the town if we did go ahead, if the votes were yes. So I don't want to lose track of this or pull it from any warrants because we don't know what the outcome of those votes will be.
Right, and we won't
And-
know until early May on the
Right.
ballot. So yeah, I agree, the
So,
bylaw should go
and
forward.
if we vote and the bylaw gets approved and then it becomes moot, then we just, you know, it gets withdrawn and that's that.
Right.
I don't want to get out of sequence in case we do end up needing it.
Yeah.
Here.
Right.
And if I could just
Yeah.
chip in just briefly, first of all, I'd echo what Wendy said. I totally agree and with what you said, that even if the select board is to put this on the ballot, that it, in my opinion, makes total sense to have a bylaw for essentially the protective reasons that you all have been outlining. But to your specific question as how that works procedurally, we did receive sample language from town council on both what a warrant article would look like and what a ballot question would look like. And it includes right in there in the draft, the language for warrant article. This is only effective if passed by voters at town meeting and town election, and comparable language on the ballot question. So it's odd. I personally haven't seen something like this, but it's how the statute reads.
There have been other issues over the years that have been like this. We vote it at town meeting and then it gets followed up by the actual voting in a ballot.
Yeah, that may be years ago, but I mean, it seems kind of robust in that it allows the discussion portion of town meeting, and then it allows everyone to go into their little voting booth
Yes.
and say what they really think. So,
Yep.
yeah, well, that's a very interesting development, and I certainly think it's the will of the town, and it seems like the job of the select board to advance things to help the will of the town be expressed.
I see that Catherine Marone's hand is back up.
Oh, all right, Catherine,
I apologize. I'm just full of questions.
that's okay. That's what we're doing
This
here.
would be addressed probably to Wendy and or Angus. Is what you're speaking about fall under the Chapter 55 Acts of 2017, an act to ensure safe access to marijuana, specifically under Section 25, where it says that we have the ability to prepare a ballot that would allow the city to adopt a bylaw relative to whether we want to allow retail marijuana establishments. And if the town votes yes, then we can have marijuana establishments. But if the majority votes no, then we would be adopting a bylaw or an ordinance that doesn't allow marijuana establishments. Is that in line with what you're talking about?
So, Wendy, I can field that one if you'd like. The statutory reference that town council is citing is General Laws, Chapter 94G. And there's a number of different citations within that section. But if I understood what you said, Catherine, so with the town's vote by ballot in 2016 to accept it, it is already allowed, and the town can further regulate it by zoning bylaw. The town cannot prohibit it, but other than by town meeting and ballot. So
That's
yeah,
what we're talking about.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's all been said. So I mean, you mentioned a number of references. I wasn't able to track those exactly, but it's all set out in the 94G, Mass General Law 94G, Section 3. But there are a number of references.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Catherine, I think in fact, the Chapter 55 reference is what's allowing us to establish this bylaw that regulates the safe access.
Okay,
Not the
thank you.
establishment of it, it's the regulation part, is Chapter 55.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any more new ground to cover? We've really heard a lot of surprising things tonight, actually.
No, but I think the important thing that was said was to continue with what we're doing.
Yeah.
Reminding everybody that this does go to town meeting. So what we do now is we just move it forward to town meeting.
Yes,
And then we have it as one option as the others play out.
indeed.
Here,
So
here.
I think, not seeing any other input, I think we've pretty well covered all the open questions. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do, and I'm first of all going to make a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
You
Second.
do.
Thank you, Brian. I'm going to poll planning board members. This vote is only on whether or not to close the hearing. Ann Bardine, aye.
Ray Cook, aye.
Deb Hamilton, I.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Rob Phillips, aye.
All right, the public hearing is closed. We'll do a little more deliberating. I think we've done about as much deliberating as we may need to do. But I think we're all in agreement that these new developments about law to basically rescind the old law are of interest, should be the will of the town, and that this bylaw still has great utility if that rescission were not to pass. Any further discussion before we vote on a recommendation? All right.
I think you've got it. That you know, if we rescind what the will of the town was in 2016, so be it. I have no objection to pursuing that if the select board wants to do that. But in case they do that and it fails, then this is proactively protecting the town as best we can.
I think we're all in agreement.
All right, then I'm going to make one more motion, and my motion is to to recommend to the town approval of this marijuana bylaw that we've been discussing. Do I have a
Second.
Second,
Thank you. All in favor? Ann Bardine, aye.
Ray Cook, aye?
Deb Hamilton, I.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Rob Phillips, aye.
All right, the vote is in favor to recommend 5-0.
And
Yes.
if I could, I'd like to thank everybody who called in, though. It was very informative, very useful, and greatly appreciated.
Here, here.
Yes, it's very helpful to us. You know, we work along on these things with Sam and others for months at a time, and yet there are always things that come up that we're glad to hear about. So yes, thank you for taking the time and giving us your thoughtful input. It's helpful. All right, next on the agenda is yet another public hearing, one down. And this one is about off-street parking and loading. So again, I will read the legal notice. The West Newbury Planning Board will hold a virtual public hearing on Tuesday, March 17th, 2026 at 7 p.m. to consider and report on the following proposed amendments to the Town of West Newbury zoning bylaw. 1, amend section 6.3, off-street parking and loading area requirements to provide appropriate spaces to serve land uses, reduce traffic congestion, promote safety and convenience, preserve neighborhood character, and reduce impacts from large paved areas. The current zoning bylaw, along with text of the proposed amendment, are on file with the town clerk. To visit the proposed changes, visit the West Newbury Planning Board website or contact the land administrator at westnewbury.org. Interested persons may participate in the public hearing by joining from computer, tablet, or phone using the link found in the notice. So we will take a vote to open the public hearing. Let's see, do I have to make a motion for that vote? I suppose.
Yeah.
I move to open the public hearing for off-street parking and loading. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Ann Bardine, aye.
Ray Cook, aye?
Deb Hamilton, I.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Rob Phillips, aye.
All right, it's unanimous. The hearing is open. And again, in the same way that we did before, we'll have a little brief description of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then planning board will discuss, or will talk, and we'll get public input after that. So basically, we have currently a very brief, outdated, and vague little bylaw from something like 1982. And this is really at the request of the zoning enforcement officer, building commissioner, Sam Jocelyn, who says that what we have now gives him absolutely no guidance at all. And of course, that means it gives no guidance to property owners who wish to develop their property or establish a business. And it also gives no guidance or protection to neighbors or abutters or anyone in town who wishes that darn big parking lot never showed up there. So we're trying to update to a more state-of-the-art parking and loading bylaw. And I'm going to let Sam fill in where it needs to be filled in about that one generally.
So for the most part, as we've said earlier, we don't have a huge business district, which is really what this is going to impact mostly, as your 1 and 2 family lots are mostly not impacted by it, other than requiring minimal off-street parking that most people have just by way of a driveway. So right now, you can see the struck language. It talks about permitted use by this bylaw. Adequate off-street parking and loading spaces shall be provided. Adequate is extremely subjective. I don't like being the person that has to determine that. It's my interpretation of the bylaw. I don't live in town. I shouldn't be the one deciding what is adequate. The other part that leaves open is if I leave, someone else comes in, their idea of adequate could be different. And then we also had some outdated language, I think, in our site plan guidelines from somewhere in the 80s, that some of it was good and was retained and incorporated into this bylaw. So it's all in one place, not just in a guidance document reference through a planning website that was pretty tough to figure out where it was. So a couple of the concerns that I've heard from people that have looked at this is existing businesses downtown. Most don't have what would be considered, even under the old bylaw, as adequate parking. They would be, by not only this bylaw, but 40A gives them that pre-existing non-conforming status. This mirrors that language to ensure them we're not coming to, shut your business down because you don't have enough parking spaces or try and make you establish more parking. What this would be is if there's new parking in town, if there's some other place where it's a non-residential application, we can ensure that the parking's done thoughtfully and there's enough room off street. The other thing that I had heard someone, and I think this got confused with a different bylaw that the town clerk was proposing, that this would prohibit off-street parking for residences. So if they had family and friends over, they couldn't park on the side of the road. That is not the case here. What this is establishing parking lots for businesses off street. So I think that pretty much sums it up. The other piece is the table itself. I had questions because there's some uses and items listed in the table that probably will never come to be in West Newbury. The reason for this is the bold sections are classifications under the building code. Being the building commissioner, I work heavily in that code, and these terms are very well described and understood. The subcategories under assembly of libraries, restaurants, theaters, again, it's very understood what those are. They're well defined within the building code and in other land use locations. I just mirrored that so that although we might never have a funeral home in town, at least it's in there for the what if. Most of what we have is pretty small businesses, and I don't see it being an extensively used table. But we had the most recent request I had for parking was the pickleball courts, and that came up as to whether or not the parking was adequate, with no guidance and no real bylaw to guide me. I basically asked people that parked in that lot, do you often find it hard to find a parking spot? And that really isn't a way to regulate parking. I think it'll work out fine. I did determine it was adequate because we really don't have any other place for parking, but this will give some guidance not only to what you need for parking, but how it should be constructed, how it should be fenced. Phyllis Unger was in earlier talking about being on the edge of the business zone. This requires certain amounts of buffers depending on the parking situation from the residential lots for screening. So it tries to just be a little bit more thoughtful when we're designing some parking.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the two things I think that folks might be concerned about, one is existing conditions. And as you say, this is what's, colloquially known as grandfathered. Anything that's existing at the time of this bylaw is fine to stay the way it is. And the fact that 1 and 2 family dwellings are exempt from any of these regulations should put the vast majority of people's minds at ease. And then, as you say, in the case where parking were to be developed with a business, at least this puts some teeth in it. It gives a 10-foot buffer. It requires screening by evergreens or fences and so forth and so on. So it tries to, again, to be a little bit proactive and protect against things that might happen, even if they never do happen.
And just on the one thing, just because I know when you were talking, you were saying 1 and 2 families were exempt. They're exempt from most of the criteria in the bylaw. There is still requirements for providing off-street space. So just to make sure that was clear that, but they're not required to have screening or any of the other requirements for turn radius or truck, type grading. But,
right. Yeah, sorry, that wasn't very precise on that. Okay, planning board members, any comments?
Ann?
Yes, Ray?
Sam, just for the sake of everybody here, in the table, you've got all kinds of specific, like 1 per 250 square feet. Where did you come up with these numbers? Do they match good practice in other towns like us?
Nope, I just made them up. No, just kidding. Yes, they are what is typically the standard out there for parking requirements for those type of occupancies. I looked at probably 24 different parking bylaws, and most ended up with these numbers. I think it's just become standard for the most part. Some of them had, slight variations, but they're in line with what most other towns of a similar size use for number of spaces.
Thank you.
Right. I do see a hand raised by Elisa Grammer, and I had heard from her with some concerns. Elisa, would you like to let us know what's up? I see that you're muted, but maybe you'll have a chance to unmute and let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah, and I haven't figured out how to make here, maybe this will work. Video.
There you go. Yes, we can see you.
So I could not find where it says that residential buildings are not covered. I'm looking at section 6.3.2 applicability, and it says no building or structure shall be erected, enlarged, or significantly altered. And there's a parenthetical definition of altered, and no land or structure be established or changed unless now that seems to apply to residential.
Yes, it does. But
In the
where it gets specific
sorry.
about residential is toward the, is it?
Bottom of the table.
Yeah, at the bottom of the table, there's a footnote.
That says no maximum
It says 1 and 2
space.
1 and 2 family dwellings and accessory dwelling units are exempt from the maximum parking space limitation.
Which is specific to the maximum parking space limitation. So yeah, you can have 1,000 parking places on your residential, but it doesn't say that residential is otherwise exempt.
Well, it isn't exempt. So 6.3.6 is the location and layout. And that's where it tells you what size the spaces need to be and all those kinds of things. And at the end of that, where is it? I just lost it again. There's one.
The P says it shall not apply to detached single family or
yes.
2-family dwellings.
Yes.
And what happens if you expand your, all I'm saying is if you want to make it really clear, I would say in the applicability section, make it clear that it doesn't apply there. Otherwise, it's a little bit ambiguous.
Well, but it does apply such that if your house, you could put an addition on your house, but if it's still a single family or 2-family house, then the same exemption would hold. Is that right, Sam? It doesn't mean.
Yeah, I'm just trying to go through. I mean, it really, most of what's in here, like loading spaces would not, the location and layout does come into play to some degree as far as the size of those spaces. I mean, if
it does apply, then that just needs to be clear. What does apply to residents and what doesn't is my point.
I think this is good input. I think that under applicability, we should have some language there, so that people don't have to dig around to find the exclusions. I think this is good input, and it should be easy enough to craft a line or two here.
Yeah, I think so. I think if it's causing confusion, then absolutely let's make it clear.
Yes.
In applicability. Okay, so we'll.
Yeah, I think that's the right place to put it.
Language to clarify residential uses or 1 and 2 family. All right.
And
in
6.3.4, when you're talking about libraries, what happens if our library, which is maybe going to have a design study,
Mhm.
gets bigger. Maybe 500 square feet bigger.
It might need 1.25
Or
more
parking, and it's in a
spaces.
historic district. And there isn't, I mean, where would you put the parking, in the training field? You know,
Well, I would have to see, I mean, that's kind of a design question. I'd have to see what the expansion of the library looked like. Parking might be completely rethought. Who knows?
Yeah,
Well,
that's,
why make up rules for something
Well, I mean, I
that
think
that's sort of,
I think
So
the,
it,
I think the answer to your
3.3
question is that a larger facility could be expected to have more users and therefore need more parking. But
I thought we had covered that by the level 3 alteration as defined by the IEBC.
So 6.3.8 under special permits would allow the planning board to issue a special permit to reduce parking for cause.
Okay,
And I think that would certainly be
right, right.
one of those,
Mhm.
causes.
right,
And
site
I-
limitations and so forth. Yep.
and I would reiterate that if there's a substantial change to the physical building of the library, then it's absolutely good that parking is fully considered and that there's some guidelines here. And, if something can't be worked out for parking, but the wisdom of the town is that the expansion is necessary anyway, even though the parking can't meet these guidelines, then there is that special permit provision.
Right.
I'm a little bit challenged just on the thought that we're going to make a 400 square foot determination for the library. It seems like that's a little arbitrary. I guess you can go the special permit route, but I'm wondering why we need regulations for this that are so highly specific. Is this based in some sort of scientific analysis of library parking needs, or?
I think,
Yes,
I think,
based
yeah,
of-
Sam said it was based on other bylaws and standards. There are all kinds of traffic and car related.
Yeah, the entire table is based
Okay.
off of what is standard for, typical design for parking for these types of facilities.
I haven't done it, Elisa, but it would be an interesting exercise to see what our current square footage is and how we stack up. Like, are we close? Are we over? Are we under? I don't know.
I don't know either, and I don't know that Old Town Hall would meet standards if it became a different use.
Well,
I don't know.
room, there's room in the back, and I think the message here is that yes, there's a special permit provision.
Right,
Yes,
right.
there is a grandfathering provision, and the other thing is that designers beware in designing a building. It's not just the building; it's also the site and the parking.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And that's very reasonable.
And in our town, Elisa, we actually have put in place so that even town-related buildings and actions have to go through the special permit process. We did that because people felt most comfortable if there was at least a review being done, other than at one time, things were being done unilaterally without much of concept of making sure it didn't interfere with other things or was, wasn't what we really all would have liked. So there's a little bit of background to why it's probably a good thing to go through a site plan review.
And that's absolutely fine.
So
I
I just measured the square foot of our library
Thanks.
and it comes in at about 6,800 square feet.
So what's that? 15, 16 parking spaces?
And oddly enough, if you go up there on a busy day, you're gonna see probably, including the training field, 16 or 17 cars.
Everyone's parked
Yeah.
along the training field.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get too far afield, but there are arguments to be made in an eventual public hearing that since all the houses there have driveways, then those public streets are available for parking and, you know, we're good. So anyway, I won't get too far ahead of ourselves.
Right.
You take my
Are
point.
public streets eligible to be counted for parking under this
Well,
bylaw?
I think that's kind of a judgment call in a special.
Or they may be taken into consideration as to whether the circumstances are then adequate because of street parking.
Anyway,
Under
we
special
also-
permit.
Part of the special permit process.
Yeah, exactly.
And the library as it exists right now has 12 parking spaces.
Right. And we all know it's not adequate.
not
Right.
adequate. That's right. All right.
So
I'm
a couple more
Oh,
points.
sorry.
6.3.6A
Mhm.
says each parking space shall be not less than 9 number 9 feet in width and 20 18 feet in length.
That's what we call a scrivener's error. Which is it, Sam? 20 or 18?
I believe we went with the 18.
Okay, so we have a.
And I just would make an overall point, if the problem is that the prior regulation or bylaw rather was too vague and the number of parking places wasn't clear, I wonder if it might be a thought to just specify the number of parking places as opposed to adding many pages about, for instance, loading docks. I'm guessing that West Newbury has had one loading dock that's new in the last 50 years, and that was at the high school. And I think in the future 50 years, there probably won't be 3 or 4 pages of regulations worth of docking loads, docking areas in West Newbury. I'm just wondering about loading up regulations, having dealt with a lot of regulations in my life. Just a thought to think about in the future.
And yet we did have one at the high school. And so
I'm aware of that. Yes, I
Yeah.
said, except for the high school.
I
In
know,
50
so-
years, I think there's been no
Yeah, Or
other.
except for the new elementary school. So thank you, Elisa, but
Yeah.
you know, we're taking advantage of Sam and his expertise while he's here.
I see a hand raised at the Dan and Patricia Square. Would you like to say something? You're muted too right now.
Yep, hi. Yeah, Patricia Reeser, 84 Crane Neck Street. And I had a couple of questions and comments again on this, the parking issue. And I applaud, you know, creating some bright lines in the parking area. I also applaud the effort to avoid having over parking. And my first question, and I think I read this correctly, the assisted living facility, I think it says there's 0.5 parking spaces per unit.
Sorry, is that in the chart? Oh, there it is. Yep. 0.5, yes.
Right. So I'm puzzled by this because while I realize that not everyone in assisted living has a car or drives even, there's usually a pretty good ratio of staff to residents at these facilities. And my concern is that the fact that there's such a low parking ratio required here could result in a fairly overbuilt building with pretty inadequate parking to the number of staff and employees and visitors who come to visit that. And so I'd be curious on what the basis is of including that, other than the fact that it's been in other parking codes.
Yeah, again, just based off industry standard of what your typical design parameters are for, you know, architects, engineers doing design for these types of facilities. Again, there's this table is meant for me and designers so that if they can meet it and it makes sense, then great, we've got a number to work with. If it doesn't, we have a special permit process either to increase or reduce number of spots through the planning board. But this at least gives us a starting point and a design parameter that where, again, most, I just had a, you know, a small group home go into Groveland, and the parking design based on occupant load, we were pretty close. They came in and asked for an additional couple of spots, but it was pretty close. And I think the larger the facility gets, the better that number is. Smaller ones, it's a little hard, but again, we have that special permit where if they need a couple extra spots, planning board's got that ability to, determine what's reasonable beyond the table.
Yeah, I'm not clear on that because I thought the point of having this in here was to avoid the subjective judgment call on whether it's enough or not. So if a developer came in with an assisted living project and provided 0.5 spaces per unit, that's a dead issue, it seems to me. He's met the criteria and the parking is adequate.
Well, they would have to show and prove out that they need additional parking.
No, I'm asking a different
Opposite,
question.
yeah, the
Yeah,
opposite.
I'm saying just the opposite. I think this is an unreasonably low standard for parking that might be necessary for an average assisted living facility, particularly as they get larger. Because you not only have guests, but you have staff and you frequently have even off premises caregivers who come and park in these facilities. So I would suggest that perhaps this one is, contrary to not wanting more parking, I'm afraid that this one might be unreasonably low. So I'll just leave it at that, but it seems, unnaturally low number. My second comment is on 6.36 I. It talks about where parking areas abut a sidewalk, you're requiring a 3-foot grass strip. First of all, I suggest that perhaps you say that the grass strip is between the sidewalk and the parking area. Otherwise, it's not clear where the grass strip goes. That's number one. But number two, I'm wondering why we're requiring more grass to be planted. It's a non-native species, uses water. It's not particularly ecologically sensible. And so I would just make the recommendation that in addition to saying where the grass strip goes relative to the parking area and the sidewalk, that the planning board require it to be either a native grass, native perennial, or native shrub for the northeastern coastal zone. Which encompasses a large area, which includes West Newbury, and which is on the U.S. Forest Service map. I'll just leave it at that. Jay, you also say here that you're referencing lighting for parking areas with respect to using the dark sky best practices as the standard. I think that's a great idea, but in the interest of bright lines, where would developer go to find a dark sky best practice? And if you had something in mind, maybe it should be spelled out here.
So not to sound flippant, but if you just Google that dark sky best practices, their best practice guide comes up. It's just called Dark Skies Best Practices. I don't know if we could be more specific or how to be more specific. If you've got a suggest, it's not similar to or not like a code or CMR where you can point directly. It's just their best practice guide.
Is there a URL for it at least? I mean, I'm in the interest of bright
Well,
line.
URLs could change,
URLs
so.
could change. What I was going to suggest, Patricia, is that to me, this says that the onus is on the applicant to prove that what they're doing is in conformance with those practices, and they will just have to bring in their
Right, exactly.
cite the reference that they are using.
Right,
See if
Okay,
it's-
fair
Yeah.
enough.
Allows the building inspector to respond to something specific and measure it and see if it actually suffices.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. It
Yeah, yeah.
probably won't change. It's under darksky.org. But again, I even with it being that simple, I hate to reference any type of URL just because of the nature of them.
Yeah.
Nice change.
Maybe perhaps it might be wise to just reference what the planning board believes dark sky best practices are at the time, because those may change, as you say.
Right. So I think this does capture that.
It
We'll
speaks
say
to it.
What
If it
standards
changes,
are, what
it will-
standards are you
yeah.
using, or we'll develop a handout, or I don't know, we'll figure something out.
Yeah,
Or maybe-
as to vegetation, Patricia,
Yeah.
we will, I'm sure, continue discussions about what it is that we might be able to accomplish through bylaws or initiatives or any number of things. I think we're a little early into that to start speaking specifically to different elements of bylaws. I think that has to be a more comprehensive discussion over a couple of years.
Fair enough, as long as it's on the radar.
It is on the radar.
We know it's on yours, so
and
that's
we-
good.
Yeah, and we listen to you.
Anne?
Thank you.
Yes, sorry, Ray, go ahead.
Be, I just did a quick analysis of Nichols Village.
Oh, good.
And currently there's 99 apartments and 90 parking spaces. And then I went through historical's database of satellite imagery, and I can find no situation in general, less than 20% of the parking spaces are used by what I see on satellite.
Wow.
Of course, I imagine it's a different thing when it's an Easter holiday or whatever, where parking would be in demand. But just as a point of reference, I would say offhand, the 0.5 seems reasonable.
That's interesting. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that, but when you think that, maybe 80% of the people there have no cars, then that would do it. So,
The old adage of don't build a church for Easter Sunday.
exactly.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, you don't build to your peak load. We know that about everything, right? So the two specific changes that I think we can make readily, 6.3.2 applicability, Sam will get some language to clarify the 1 and 2 family aspects of that. And the other is 6.3.6A, 18 feet instead of
Right.
20 and 18 feet.
There's one last one.
And what's the last one, Rob?
I hesitate to mention this, but on page 19, where you have crossed out, well, you crossed out 6.3. This is a general use regulations table of contents. 6.3 is crossed out. I don't think it should be crossed out, but
Sorry, I don't know where you are because I don't have those
page
numbers.
19 of 37.
Yeah, but I'm not looking at it that way.
Yeah, I know, but
So is it in
Jen,
which
Jen can
section of
get
the
down
bylaw? Which section of the
right
bylaw?
there, right there.
Oh,
There it
after
is,
the
yeah,
bylaw,
just
okay.
the
Okay,
6.3
it's right there,
itself
yeah.
shouldn't
So
be.
6.3 is crossed out. It shouldn't be, I believe, because I think we're referencing it. And then I would just put a capital L on the loading standard, so it goes back to the actual, how we handle the title in the section itself.
And I've got two things. There's somebody here named Peter who's got his hand up. We want and just
Oh, okay.
for everybody knows, a 9 by 18 parking space is on the smaller side. 10 by 20 is a more standard size of a parking space, but we went with the smaller size for these regulations. And again,
Keep in mind that's a minimum size, so businesses can opt for the
Right.
larger.
Right.
And again, it looks like there's somebody named Peter who's muted but wanted to speak. Yeah, his hand is up.
All right, well, I will recognize Peter, who's muted and whose hand is up.
Oh, and his camera just went off. And now his camera's back on, but he's still muted.
All right.
He's working on it.
This could be an accident.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that.
All right.
Peter from 125 Bachelor Street. I happen to know somebody over for the senior living over in Groveland, Dick Cammett, who's on the board. He's actually one of the founders of it. And according to him, you're supposed to have a half of a parking spot per every bed, and then one parking spot for every single employee. So if there's 40 employees, you need 40 spots for the employees, and then there's 100 beds, you need another, 50 beds for those, 100 residents.
So I think.
Sam, was that developed under Groveland regulations that you're familiar with?
So I'm guessing that is at the time. But that's what Dick Cammett had commented, and he's their current president.
Yeah, it could be the housing authority standard. I mean, and I'm not opposed to changing it to read, 1 per bed plus 1 per employee.
Well,
Well, yeah, it's a half per bed and one per employee.
Yeah,
is
and
what
we
it
don't
is
know
there.
where that actually came from, and it might have been something in place at the time. And by the way, is that assisted living or is that residential living?
That's assisted.
That's assisted. So, it wouldn't hurt to consider moving that to 1.0 as being better than 0.5, and then they can go through a special permit process if they want to do less.
Or we could keep the 0.5 per unit and X per X employees,
Yeah, right,
another
but you
employee
don't
one-
have all employees in at once,
Exactly.
so.
I know some of
Yeah.
these, it says, employee.
Yeah, so I would, yeah, so.
On the largest shift, that kind of thing, so.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I would say, how about this? How about we propose 0.5 per bed plus
Per unit.
per unit plus 0.5 per staff member at the, as envisioned it,
It's tough. Yeah.
It is tough because.
Or you could do 1.0 per unit.
It probably 1.0 per unit's a lot easier and just let them go for an amendment from there.
Yeah, but then you don't pick up the nuance, as Sam was saying, it's a kind of a scale thing with larger and bigger units. So if you've got a 10 unit place, you might still need a lot of employees compared to a 20, you know what I mean? 20 units, you might only need a few more employees. I don't know, Sam, what do you think? Are we getting too in the weeds here?
Look at Groveland and it's 1 per 2 beds, which is, a half a parking spot per
Half,
unit,
yeah.
basically.
Right,
If you got a 2-bedroom
Right.
suite. I do like the idea of, I think in our table, if you scroll back up, there is language for, number of employees, largest shift.
Yes,
On one of those, I think possibly adding one space per employee per larger shift.
Right,
On
right.
the contractor yard.
Yeah, that goes to
certainly
Ray's suggestion. Yep.
yeah.
Add that to the assisted living if, it
There you
seems to me.
go.
So we
It's
would do
under
0.5
restaurants as
plus,
well.
we would do 0.5 plus the employee thing?
Yes.
I think so. I think that's, still
0.5 per
reasonable and
unit.
that adjusts per scale.
Yep,
0.5 per, so language being proposed here, Ann, or Jen, or whoever's writing this down, is 0.5 per unit plus 1 space per employee on largest shift.
Yes,
great,
I think that makes sense.
cool.
Thanks,
Good.
Peter.
Yes.
Thank
I
you.
like that. Thank you, Peter.
Thank
No
you for your
problem.
good input.
Yeah.
And also thanks to Patricia. This was
Yes.
her
Yes.
concern as well.
And to Elisa,
And
those
to-
close readers of zoning bylaws that we're so glad we have on our team.
Those lawyers,
And Peter, I don't know if he's a lawyer.
well,
but
I don't know, Peter did a good job, but
He did.
the
did.
lawyers in town are
Yes.
renowned for scrutinizing language.
They're good scrutinizers.
Good
Okay.
scrutinizers.
Any other hands raised that I'm not seeing?
I don't see anybody in chat either.
All right, well then I am going to make the first motion, which is I move to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Ann Bardine, aye.
Ray Cook, aye.
Deb Hamilton, I.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Rob Phillips, aye.
All right, the motion passes unanimously. The public hearing is closed. We will deliberate and discuss. Any more discussion required? Not hearing any. We do have some changes to make. I think we've made notes of those. Those will get taken care of quite readily. I'll talk to Jen tomorrow. I will make a motion that the planning board recommend this article to town meeting for a town meeting vote.
As
Amended for the,
as amended.
as amended.
Second,
All in favor? Ann Bardine, aye.
Ray Cook, aye.
Deb Hamilton, I.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Rob Phillips, aye.
The vote is 5-0. It passes unanimously. All right, thank you very much. And now I'm gonna we've already closed the public hearing, so I think we can move on our agenda.
I'm assuming you don't need me anymore.
No, thank you very much, Sam. That was helpful.
Thank you,
Appreciate it,
Sam.
Sam.
Thanks for all
Have a
your
good
work on these
you.
over the many months.
Take care.
Thanks, Sam. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Item 1C on our agenda is in regard to the rules and regulations, this should be pretty straightforward. I will read the legal notice. West Newbury Planning Board will hold a virtual public hearing on Tuesday, March 17th, 2026 at 7 p.m. to consider the following proposed amendments to the Town of West Newbury subdivision rules and regulations. 1. Amend Section 2.1 definitions to add and define slope resource area. Number 2, amend Section 4.2.10.2 to prohibit construction in slope resource areas. To view the proposed changes, contact landadmin@westnewbury.org. Interested persons may participate in the public hearing by joining from computer, tablet, or smartphone using the link found in the notice. Vote to open the public hearing. I move to open the public hearing for the rules and regulations changes. Is there a second? All in favor? Ann Bardine, aye.
Ray Cook, aye.
Deb Hamilton, I.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Rob Phillips, aye.
Unanimous. The public hearing is open. And again, this is regarding rules and regulations to subdivision, subdivision rules and regulations, which are not a zoning bylaw. They're rules and regulations that stand alongside the subdivision control law and are typically related to specific local requirements and needs. They also have to do with things like how applications get submitted and things like that. So this is a project that Ray Cook has been shepherding. And Ray, would you like to give the explanation of what we're doing here?
Yeah, so there's a little ambiguity in our bylaw and in our regulations, and this is to clear that up. There's concern about disturbing areas of steep slopes and leaving areas with steep slopes after construction. This addresses the first concern. It does not specifically address the second concern at this point. And that again is the concern that when you have construction in areas of steep slope, there's problems with it. And this isn't just West Newbury doing something strange. This is common throughout the Commonwealth. And I looked at everything I could find in bylaws and rules and regulations in towns all across Massachusetts to try to figure out where we should be and what's the best language, et cetera. And it boiled down to this, clarifying, defining a new term for West Newbury called a slope resource area. And that's a term of art used in other towns. And that defines the slope resource area as the place where you do have steep slopes, which we define as having a gradient of 20% or higher. And then also providing a little buffer around that. Steep slopes can be prone to landslides. We have had landslides in West Newbury. There are some active slopes still in West Newbury. And so you want to have a buffer around the edge of the steep slope area. At the top of the slope, if you were to build right up to the edge of a steep slope, you could lose that due to the landslide activity. And if you're close at the toe of a steep slope, then of course that area could be damaged by soil coming down from above. So that's why it's the area of 20% or more, and includes a 15-foot width. So it's defining this is not unusual, but residents should be aware that it's a significant thing. And also, I don't want to try to sneak anything by anybody. Calling 20% steep is what we're proposing here, and that seems what should work in West Newbury. I was surprised to find that what you call a steep slope sort of depends on what you're used to. And in different areas of Massachusetts, different gradients are used as steep. Um, so if you're in a very flat area out on the Cape or something, you might consider 10% steep. And if you're out in the Berkshires, you might consider 30% steep. Around here, 20% seems like the best number to use. And once you've defined that slope resource area, then it actually simplifies the language in the regulation about disturbing areas of steep slopes by just simply referring back to it. And so that's what's on your screen there. So the actual regulation would say construction shall not be proposed of road, stormwater management systems, driveways, pipes, or other infrastructure construction shown on a subdivision plan in a slope resource area. So by the way, a little proposed change here would be to cross out a land area.
And also, okay,
So it just says shown on a subdivision plan in slope resource areas.
so we'd be crossing out on a land area, which I think
Yes,
was from
yes.
previous iteration.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yes.
And then the other thing that I would, I think got left out by accident would be to, in the definitions, put my language in there about how to define slope. So what's meant by gradient? This is confusing because there turns out to be 3 different ways that people measure slope. And so I would propose, and I think it got dropped by accident, the definition of a slope gradient. And I have that language in the draft document, but basically for everybody here, it just says the incline of the soil surface is expressed as percentage and is determined by dividing the vertical rise in elevation by the horizontal distance between 2 points as measured along the shortest path between said points.
So would you just put that in there parenthetically, or would you add a sentence?
I would add slope gradient as
Oh,
a
is it-
new term
It's a definition, okay.
in the
Yeah.
definition section, and I think that was always intended. It just kind of sort of a typo that got left out.
Right, so you'll provide that language.
That
Okay.
language has already been provided and has been reviewed by this planning board.
Oh, okay. All
And
right.
and again, it's because people get confused about how you measure it.
Right. Okay, so we'll need to get that. But again, this is our own rules and regulations, so we can make that change as a,
And there's nothing weird about what I'm proposing as a definition for slope gradient. It's just to remove any potential ambiguity because people do get confused about how you measure slope.
to clarify. Okay. I also want to just clarify for myself and point out for others that the slope resource area truly is an area. It needs to be half an acre or more to even be considered as such. We're not talking about the little bump here and there in your yard.
Correct.
We're talking about a
Correct.
true area of land. So
That's
half an
right.
acre is approximately, we'll call
That's
it.
intentional. And again, that half acre is what has evolved to become a standard. In earlier discussion on the parking spaces and whatnot, it's like, was there a scientific basis for X number of parking spaces? A lot of these things in engineering evolve over time. People try something and find out it's inadequate, it gets changed, and things arrive at a consensus. And in this case, the half acre has been the result of people working on this for years and finding what works and what doesn't. So a half acre, as people here are probably aware, that's a considerable size, but it will exclude little bumps and, cuts for your driveway and that sort of thing.
Right. I don't want people to get concerned that this is going to somehow regulate because they've got a little, slope up to their tomato patch.
Exactly. And also, as we've talked about earlier tonight, existing conditions are what they are. And passing this bylaw wouldn't impose new efforts on people's existing property.
Right. This would be for new development that came before us under the subdivision regulations.
Correct.
Okay. Board members have any comments or questions?
And
Yes, Rob?
this being something that we can do outside of the town meeting process,
Mhm.
Is it possible that we've had the discussion tonight, but at our next meeting, we could actually see the language that we're gonna adopt?
Yes, I think we could do that. I think that would involve actually keeping this public hearing open,
Which isn't
Well,
onerous.
which is,
and I can also share my screen and show you the language if you're
Oh.
talking about that new definition,
Yeah.
Rob, is that what?
If you got something that will actually look like what we're gonna
yeah, let's do
take
that.
up, that would be
And then we
great.
won't have to continue the hearing. I'd love to wrap this up. Yes.
Okay.
Locate.
So I have to send a request to Jen, who's got to let me share the screen.
All right. I'm sure she can do that.
Okay. And I think you see it here. I've highlighted it in yellow.
Yes, there we go.
Is that large enough for you to see?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yes, a good example. So those two items in yellow.
The two items in yellow would be what would be added to the regulations. These are
Mhm.
not bylaws, by the way, for people who are visiting. There's a difference in how we approve regulations as opposed to bylaws. This is
Right.
a regulation.
Yeah, so its heading is a little
So-
bit off, but that's okay.
That's
Just
good.
note. Yep,
And that's it.
Great. Thank you.
perfect. All right, any other comment? Brian has a comment. Yes, please.
Yes, again, this change in the subdivision came about during a recent review of the subdivision regulations, which indicated a conflict because that slope gradient was noted in subdivision at 25%. And in our zoning bylaws, special permits, we reference a 20%. And this brings the two of them into symmetry together at 20%. Don't know how long that has been there, but sometimes it's good to read some of the arcane details in here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
it
gonna have to
makes-
get a Lisa on that.
It makes us more consistent.
Right,
Yes,
we don't
Yeah.
want conflicting information in different places.
right.
Help
But
anyone.
beyond that, Ray also has come up with a new concept of how to talk about all of this.
Yes, it explains how you get there. which
Right.
is very
Which is-
helpful.
Right, very helpful.
Right,
Thank you, Ray.
yes,
Thank you, Ray.
that was a big
Absolutely.
project. All right, we don't have to take public comment on this, but I'll just ask if there is any. Going once, going twice?
Wendy has a,
Yes, Wendy's hand. Yes, Wendy.
Which is more than a comment. I'm just wondering how this kind of dovetails with the stormwater management regs. I mean, is it just covering between half acre and acre, or is it this, more protection than the stormwater regs provide?
I don't think this is the same as the stormwater regs. This has to do with what you can actually disturb. Where you can actually disturb. So,
Okay.
does that make sense? I mean, something would still be going through the stormwater process. We're
Mhm.
just saying, for purposes of getting our approval under the subdivision control law, we don't want you disturbing slopes that are greater than 20%.
So this is in addition to whatever stormwater regs would have to be followed if the disturbance was more than an acre.
Yes.
Half acre.
Well, this one is.
Oh,
talking
well,
about
the stormwater,
Yeah.
yeah, 1 acre, yeah. this-
Stormwater is 1
Okay.
acre. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
This is where, not how.
Mhm.
Okay, other comments from the public or other listeners? No? All right, in that case, I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
Thank you. All in favor? Ann Bardine, aye.
Ray Cook, aye.
Deb Hamilton, I.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Rob Phillips, aye.
Thank you.
And then
Any-
under the discussion, and
Yes.
another thing to consider in the future would be the second concern. And that's how construction how a site ends up after construction. And so
Post-construction.
that,
Yes.
yeah, that could be addressed with a line that says land disturbance shall not result in a final embankment slope with a slope gradient in excess of 20% unless so authorized by the planning board by special permit. And so there's two issues, like I said. One is, what do you have to protect as it exists? And the second issue is how you leave things when you're done building. I mean, it's possible for somebody to come into an area where the steepest slope is 15%, so they can build everywhere. But when they leave it after they do their highway and put in their septic systems and whatever, that they leave a slope that is now steep by our definition.
Yep.
And I would suggest we would want to talk about that in the future. Personally, I would say that would be undesirable to have a builder produce steep slopes where there had been none.
This would apply to that duplex that they cut the wall, the steep slope in back of the house.
For
that
example,
nobody had anticipated, right?
right, well, okay, so
Don't know what the
there's,
slope of
again, there's
that
two
was.
issues.
Yeah.
One is when they went in to build it, were they messing about in an area that already had steep slopes?
Yes.
But I think your concern, which I share, is that, let's say somebody does everything correctly there and there wasn't anything steep, but by the time they're done, they've left something that's very steep.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's desirable, but that wasn't part of what we advertised.
Right.
So I'm just saying now that for future consideration, planning board consideration, we may want to revisit this and have another public hearing, 6 months or a year or whatever, to make sure we address how construction leaves a site.
Well, and in that case, I'll pick up on Wendy's comment, and I think that may well need some coordination with the stormwater bylaw, because I think there are post-construction requirements in that. So, yes, something to look forward to.
Forward, yeah.
Working on slopes. All right, any more discussion before we take yet another vote? All right, well, this does not have to go to town meeting, but I will recommend that the planning board adopt these changes to the rules and regulations as presented here tonight, Ray's final version.
Second,
I'll second that.
All in favor? Ann Bardine, aye.
Ray Cook, aye.
Deb Hamilton, I.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Rob Phillips, aye.
Great, 5-0. It's unanimous. These are adopted, and we'll figure out the mechanism to get them into our subdivision rules and regs. Thank you
Well
very much.
done. Thank you, Ron.
Marathon of hearings.
Well done. Yep.
Okay. Let me just look at my paperwork here, figure out where we're going.
Oh, boy.
Okay, we've made it through item 1. I
Woo.
think item 2 is pretty quick. We'll have a brief discussion about this.
Oh,
But we've been working on the visioning and build out portion of an eventual master plan. This was a first phase with money that had been adopted at a town meeting last year to fund it. And we were embarked on a process, and there have been some changes to staffing in town, impending and current changes to staffing, and other organizational efforts, organizational assessment being undertaken by the select board, and things which just may result in a slightly different way of doing things. So it seemed that given all that, this was not the best time to embark on a process that we wanted to really be able to focus on and go forward. And our time was getting short. So I've talked with the chair of the select board, and it seems that the best course of action is to defer this process. And I would propose that we defer it to the fall of this year. There's no issue for the funding. This is town money. There is no grant money. There's no uncertainty about the funding existing. We have it. And it has been approved to use through June 30th of 2027. So my vision is, if we take this back up in the fall, again with Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, who have been informed and are able to defer this till later in the year, we'll be able to give it its due, and that's what I'm going to suggest that we do. Do board members have
Here.
comments or reactions? Yes, Brian?
Yeah, no, frankly, I'm delighted to hear that. I've just personally been concerned about this compressed timetable and given a pending vacancy with the our planner, that it felt, when things start to feel forced and you get a pit in your stomach that, boy, this just doesn't feel right. This is good news for us and the good news for the town. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Others? Pretty much.
Here.
All right. Well, not that we need to do it, but I'm just going to suggest that we do a little vote to indicate the sense of the board to support this approach to deferring this process, to working with Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, but to doing it later in the calendar year.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor? Ann Bardine, aye.
Ray Cook, aye.
Deb Hamilton, I.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Rob Phillips, aye.
All right, thank you. We will take this up, when it's pumpkin spice season or something like that. We'll see when the moment feels right, when we have staffing and the focus to get this done properly. Thank you all. We've added an item to the agenda. Well, it's been there since you got the agenda, I guess. The town manager had requested an opportunity to talk about the planning board budget. We had submitted basically a level funded budget. And again, I think the sense of the board may be that, given uncertainties about the future and about reorganization, that seemed like the way to go. But Angus Jennings asked to be on the agenda and sent us a document which I received this morning and haven't really had a chance to study. So Angus, do you want a couple of minutes to fill us in on what your thinking is?
Sure, I appreciate that, Ann. So if you jump to page 5 of the memo, that's kind of the punchline, which is that I am recommending what you said, which is a level staffing budget. It would basically be the FY26 salary wage budget adjusted for COLA. So now you're into a couple of the exhibits there on the screen, but is it page 4? I'm sorry, page 4, the right prior to that, this one here.
Okay.
So
hang on. Therefore, my recommendation. It looks the bottom paragraph. It looks like.
That's right. Yeah, so back when I presented the budget on February 12th, I was working with a number of constraints, and the memo kind of goes into that, but one of the primary ones was the select board's bottom line target. I was charged with presenting a budget to them that did not exceed a 2.5% bottom line increase, not including schools. So, and to be very frank, the board has set that policy direction just about every year I've been here. And this FY27 budget cycle is the first time that I've delivered that. I'm not saying anything that's not knowable in public meetings, but I've always come forward and said, you said 2.5%. I wasn't able to do that. I came in at, 2.6 or 2.8 or even 3.1 or 3.2. A couple of years ago, we had 35% increase in retirement. So it was kind of, you play the hand you're dealt. So, but this year the board said, we want to see what 2.5% would do. And so that pushed me to some difficult decisions working with the town accountant. She and I are kind of the primary. We receive budgets from all sides, and we coalesce that, and we do our best to meet the policy direction of the board. So that 2.5% bottom line pushed some real tough discussions, but also I was due to present my budget on February 12th, and on February 2nd, the town planner presented his notice of resignation. So that kind of opened the thinking of, hey, prior to just posting this position, should we think about the staffing structure? So on February 12th, the budget that I presented did carry a reduced salary wage amount for planning. It carried a 32-hour-a-week planning administrator position, which basically would go back to what the position had been in FY18, except with 32 hours instead of 25. I am now revising that recommendation, acknowledging to the select board that this would increase the bottom line, although since that time, there have been a couple of other budget lines that have reduced. So I actually think we could still hit that 2.5, but we do expect health insurance to go up next week. But anyhow, so my recommendation is to essentially a level staffing budget, carrying the assumed COLA. As you may recall from prior budget cycles, the select board doesn't set the annual COLA until late in the process, once they kind of have the bottom line numbers. So I'm carrying an assumed 2%. That could change before all said and done. But what that would do would be to preserve the option to go forward with the current staffing structure, which includes the 28-hour-a-week town planner position, as well as 30% of the land and building services administrator position. There are other ways that the town could go about staffing that I think are worth considering. But Anne, as you said, the select board is on the cusp of, they've received a couple of proposals, and they're on the verge of, awarding a contract probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks for an independent consultant to do an organizational assessment of the town offices, which will include the land and building services function. So all that taken into account, I think the prudent thing to do is to carry the budget that preserves those options. That is what I've recommended to the Finance Committee. But because there is some nuance to this, and because I did in my initial proposal carry something different, I definitely wanted to present that directly to the board. And you and I had talked about maybe putting that on the March 3rd agenda. It wasn't timely, so here we are. And so hopefully, the memo gives you the background that you need. And I'm happy to, discuss this further. And one thing that the memo does set out is just in West Newbury's form of government, the town org chart, so the staffing structure and the staffing levels and the salary and wages are all subject to select board modification and approval. The town manager can recommend, the select board approves. So, and then of course the legislative body provides the funding.
Right. So it's an unenviable task to come up with a number when the target is kind of moving all the time. So it sounds like you've come to a good compromise, and if things need to be adjusted in the future, which I will be very surprised if they don't need to be adjusted after this organizational assessment, et cetera, then that will be for another time. But I think
But in the meantime, we're both,
fine, yeah.
we're in agreement with
Yes,
what's
we're in agreement.
being said.
Yeah,
Great.
it's basically
Great.
what we've all kind of thought all
Right.
along, and here we are, meeting of the
Thank
minds.
you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Angus. Okay.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks for staying with us so long, Angus.
It's been fascinating. I
Really
mean, honestly,
fascinating.
I'm not being glib. I actually enjoy this stuff. So
That's right. You can't keep an old planner down, right? Okay. Here we go. Item number 4 on the agenda, general business. We have some minutes from November 18th. Let's pull those up and take a look.
Hey, Ann,
Yes.
at the outset, could I just say that once again, we are getting great minutes? I mean, I'm not used to minutes being this good.
Oh, all right. Well, good.
No,
what
from elsewhere, from past history, they've been very good over the last few months.
All right. Well, that's excellent to hear. I'm sure everyone who's
Agreed.
involved is glad to hear it. All right. Have people had a chance to review the minutes, first of all? And if so, do you have comments? Very quiet. Page 1. Don't hear anything. All right. Let's move on to page 2. Anything there? This is kind of deja vu all over again, since we just had these public hearings.
Yeah, quick, someone find something.
Okay, let's move on to the next page, page 3. Nope, we're all just keeping track of the same things that we've been keeping track of. Nothing. Anyone?
Move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second,
All in favor? Ann Bardine, aye.
Ray Cook, aye.
Deb Hamilton, I.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Rob Phillips, aye.
Right.
Thank you, Jen Geary.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.
General business, item B, reports and updates. Anything from any of our satellite groups? Yes,
No.
Brian.
Our meeting is on Thursday. I'll report at the next meeting.
All right, thank you. Affordable Housing Trust?
I have nothing today.
Nothing. And CPC, right?
Nothing today.
All right, well, that was easy. Correspondence, we can pull those up. I have to say, I did look through these and I would say all the small towns are working on the same things.
Right, exactly.
A lot of bylaw changes and hearings ahead of town
Town
meetings.
meetings.
Nothing that directly affects us, but just to know that we're in the same boat as everybody else. That's probably reassuring.
Yeah.
And if I could,
Oh, yes, Angus.
yeah, thank you. So Ray was one of the few at last week's CPC meeting, but unfortunately, it was less than a quorum, so the
Oh.
meeting didn't go forward. But I do just want to let you know, because I know it's a issue of interest to you. There is the pending funding proposal before the CPC for the walkway
Nice.
at Cammett Park, and that's part of the posted articles packet. So if you haven't reviewed that, I would encourage people to take a look. Obviously, Ray is representing you guys on the CPC, and that'll be taken up at their next meeting on April 8th, which is still timely for the town meeting. But I just want to let you know that is in circulation, and credit Doug Mead as well as a number of staff people, both Jen Geary and Butch, have been real helpful in putting together that proposal.
Okay, good.
Really glad to see that
Perfect.
going forward.
Nice to see yeah,
Yeah.
taking the reins on getting things accomplished. It's wonderful. Thank you.
And going back to our correspondence, I will point out that, yeah, the town of Groveland is dealing with marijuana establishments as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, these are all, well, we do share a building commissioner, so there you go. Yes, but we're working on the same projects. Okay. I don't have any other comments on the correspondence. I think that was it, those 3 notices. Administrative details. Let's see, what have we got?
When do we start interviewing?
No, we're not there.
Okay.
Let's see. Administrative details, MHP training, is that what this is? Or is this the assessment? There were 2 different
assessment.
letters.
This is
Okay.
the assessment.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah, the assessment, we can talk about that. So every year we pay an assessment to MVPC. Those are our dues for being part of the Regional Planning Authority. And they have a formula for how they are calculated. And they are telling us in their cover letter about all kinds of services that they provide. I think we're all familiar with them, but it doesn't hurt to look at those every year. This is a population-based assessment, right, Brian?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
We
so
pay the
you'll
lowest.
see.
We pay the lowest.
Yes, we have the
There's some
smallest
pretty big
town. And
fees elsewhere. Yes.
so that number is always there's always a line item in the budget for MVPC assessment, and it floats accordingly. And now we've received this in time for it to be incorporated into the budget for town meeting. So we'll have to make sure that's been furnished. Oh, I guess it did go to the assessor. So everybody, well, we'll make sure it makes it into the budget anyway. I'm sure Angus has seen.
Good.
All right, good. So that's for our information. Then MHP training must be the next document. So what are their trainings? What is this? Oh, yes. So Mass Housing Partnership, that's MHP, right? Mass Housing Partnership is holding some trainings. Looks like one was last week, one is tomorrow. These were furnished to members, so you should certainly take a look at those if you are interested in attending them. And I believe we usually budget money for education, which if there were a fee, you would be reimbursed for any fees. All right, you've all seen that in your packets.
Mhm.
So we'll pass on from that. Item E is placement of items for future planning board agendas. These are this is really a place like in the same way that I have lists at home of various projects. These are things that we want to remember are kind of out there. The work plan list, that's sort of in conjunction with the select board. Energy storage systems, zoning amendments for compliance with the state. This is another one. Sam isn't here any longer, but this is another area where the state has changed what they want towns to do, but they haven't really come up yet with their model bylaw or the model changes. So we're on hold until we hear more from the state.
Question, is
Yes.
this the battery storage
This
system?
is
or
the
is this
huge storage, yeah,
Other,
the big
program.
storage systems, the big ones, yeah.
right, so we have that in place, and this would be perhaps somewhat
If changes,
modification.
yes, if changes need to be made, given changes that the state
Yep.
continues to make, yes.
I'll just point out that and several of these, we've been ahead of the state.
Mhm.
I know. I
Yeah.
know.
When it came to ADUs, comes to this,
Mhm.
yeah, wind turbine stuff.
Inclusionary, long time ago, yeah. So we'll
Yeah.
just see, we may be in good shape, but we may need to make a few changes, so that won't be able to happen for this spring's town meeting, but who knows, maybe by fall it will be all sorted out. And the stormwater regulations analysis, I believe that's still being worked on. There's a working group made up of Board of Health and various other boards and committees in town with Lori Kennedy of Horsley Witten. And I think this is the analysis where Horsley Witten is looking at our various bylaws, rules and regulations and so forth across boards and committees and commissions to make sure that things are consistent. And when there is something ready to be presented, I'm sure they will present it.
And
Yes.
just follow up again, after this stuff is sorted, then we should go back and deal with the steep slopes and how that coordinates with the,
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
All right.
So Ray, that's your next thing to be working on right now. Get ready,
oh, I'm ready.
get ready.
I'm ready.
Oh,
Okay.
he was born ready. Okay, that's great. All right. Items not reasonably anticipated. I think Brian might have one. Yes.
Yeah, we know our planner is had submitted a resignation, and he is in fact no longer with us at this time. I have two things. I would like the board to talk about how we're going to move forward over the next, I'll just say several months, with coverage and with a possibility of a large project on the Knapp property moving ahead. I have no sense of what or when that may happen or may not happen.
I can tell you.
Well, hear me out, please.
Yep.
And also, if we needed to have an interim meeting before our next April, what is it, 6th or 7th?
Yes, because it's one of those 3-week
It's a
gaps.
3-week thing that if we wanted to, not tonight, it's 9/13, and to try to find a date that works so we could talk about moving forward together on how this board sees ourselves over the next several months. So I just want to throw that out for some discussion.
If I could, I would like to have that meeting. I think it might also be done as we've done one other time in the past, is perhaps meet at the planning board offices on this one item.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have no objection.
Yeah.
No,
Well, given that we have the 3 weeks, you know, our regular 2-week interval would be 2 weeks from tonight on March 31st, but is that too long to wait? Do we want to try to do it?
I'd prefer next week if we
I would
could,
prefer
but
next week.
Yeah, I don't want to let too much time go by because
right.
we'll be here juggling. Tuesday, May 24th, is that possible for?
March, you mean?
I'm sorry, March 24th. Are you still away then, Deb?
I am still away, but this is working.
Yeah. Okay.
I do have, yeah, I've got a riding club meeting, but that's all right. I can work it out.
Yeah, and you have time zone issues with your travels and stuff.
Yes,
Not
yes.
ideal.
No, I'm all right. I can do Tuesday, March 24th.
Okay.
What time? 7 o'clock?
Let's do 7. That's our usual. And I guess we could try to, it would be nice to meet in person, I think. I
Sure.
kind of- But we
I would
can-
prefer that, yes.
Yeah,
Sure.
we can loop Deb in and we'll figure out, I'll think about how best to do that. Might even just be
Okay.
phone call, Deb. you know, just
Well,
Yeah.
no, we can have Deb zoom in.
If we set up a Zoom, yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
just as an
In the right
individual.
room.
Just
Yeah.
with her and meet in that
Yeah.
other room. Yeah, okay. All
All
right,
That's Tuesday, the 24th.
yes, a week from today, and
Are we talking about the second floor hearing room?
I think it would have to be if we want to do a Zoom.
Yeah, so someone's got to get up with Caitlin to make sure it's available to us.
Yes, I may put that on the Jen list.
Well, I will point out that just for, if it's just Deb, any of us can just bring a laptop and
Yeah, well, that's what I
Zoom her in.
thought. Too. She
Yeah.
can,
Okay.
Less
do it by-
complicated probably than running all the equipment that they've got set up.
Well, it's not complicated in that room, Ray, but yes, point
Okay.
taken.
Well, it could even-
If we're good with a laptop, yeah.
could even be a FaceTime.
Yeah,
Right?
whatever, yeah.
We
As
don't
of right now, the second floor hearing room is open that day.
Okay, thanks, Jen.
I think you might find it better doing it on the large screen.
Large screen.
Good, fine. I don't know how to do it, but that's fine.
Yeah, we'll teach you. We'll teach you.
Okay.
Somebody does, and we will figure it out. Okay, so let's plan on the hearing room. And yeah, so I know,
I'd also like to see, is there a sense of the board that we may want to have an executive session to discuss certain aspects of the departure?
I'll have to look at the criteria for executive session.
Yeah, and I think that complicates getting something set up for next week. I don't think that's as easily done, Brian. And I'm not even so sure that's really to the point of why we're meeting next week.
Well, there may be differences of opinion there, but we
Yep.
need to look and see what executive session permits us to do. But I know as far as if we're looking more forward, there are options, interim type professionals that sometimes can be called upon to fill gaps. MVPC does a certain amount of that, but we'll talk about all these things
Yeah.
when we meet next week.
All right.
And
Well,
have a
that's
chance to
fine. Sure.
So we'll need actually to get that posted. So Jen and I have plenty to talk about tomorrow. Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Last thing,
Yes, of course.
Jen may know about this, but Paul Savigny had sent me that there's ongoing hearing screening events next week. There's a sign-up sheet, and it's been extended to board and committee members, so he wasn't sure that we were aware of this. And there's tons of time in the afternoon. Jen, are you familiar with this?
I don't know what you mean by a hearing screening.
Either.
Yes.
So at town hall, someone's coming in and they'll do a hearing screening for anybody who's interested, free of charge.
What does that mean?
Test your hearing.
Test your hearing.
Oh, hearing. I thought you
Oh,
meant like a
hearing.
public
Yeah, I
hearing.
thought
I'm
you meant like
sorry.
a
Yeah, that's where my
You're
mind
going
was.
So
Gonna
Jen,
show
you
a
know
movie
about
of a
this,
hearing.
right?
Yes, yes. There is a
Right.
sign up sheet in the office across the hall from mine.
Right, so.
What did you say, Jen?
Exactly.
So-
What's it that I
I-
couldn't
Exactly,
hear?
you
I
need
just-
one.
just
So
didn't
Paul
know.
wanted
service
to
runs
invite
often.
all of you to sign up if you're interested, and Jen knows where the sheet is.
Okay. Well,
He's been
thank you.
talking to my wife.
You have our best interests at heart. Yeah, Tim's chiming in now. Yeah, that's cute. Multiple meanings of the word hearing. There you go. All right. I have nothing else that was not reasonably anticipated. Sounds like no one else does either.
Oh, good.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
All right. All in favor? Ann Bardine, aye.
Ray Cook, aye.
Deb here. Aye.
Brian Murphy, aye. Yeah.
Rob Phillips, aye. Don't we just generally do it by consensus? We're
Yeah,
getting
we
the
do.
hell out
You
of
just
here.
usually
know.
mumble. Yes, let's go. All right.
Let's go. Come on.
We're
Thank
ready.
you,
Thank you, guys.
everybody.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you
Done.
all.
Thank
Great
you,
job,
Jen.
Ann.
Plan.
Jen,
job,
thank
Ann.
you. You did great.
Yeah,
You're
Good job.
welcome.
absolutely
Wonderful.
seamless. Very good.
Well
You did
done.
great.
Night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.